It's coming down, but it don't bother me. 'Cause everything is just as it should be. I don't worry anymore. I used to, but I'm free. And everything is just as it should be.
Hey everybody, I'm Dennis McDonough. When I travel to our VA facilities, I make it a point to stop by our VA chaplains' offices. But here's the thing. The place to find VA chaplains isn't sitting in front of a computer in their office. You find them walking the halls of a community living center. You find them in the emergency department, or at the canteen, or at the domiciliary. Anywhere you find veterans and their families, you find our chaplains there ministering to them. And studies have shown that VA patients who have chaplains or faith leaders involved in their health care leave the hospital sooner, are less likely to be readmitted, and are better able to manage their pain and their stress.
Along with the Secretary, I am so thankful for our chaplains, and I'm excited to recognize your impressive work. This year's theme, Chaplains Beyond Religious Roles, encapsulates the spirit and contributions of VA chaplains, and I know of no other VA clinical service line that has adapted itself to so many different clinical areas in our healthcare system. Since becoming Undersecretary, I have worked closely with Executive Director Chaplain Willis on a vision for the full integration of spiritual health into our VA healthcare model. This growth will allow our chaplains to more substantively engage veterans at every access point, to include primary care and CBOX, and expand work in VA clinical priority areas such as mental health, suicide prevention, whole health, women's health, and LGBTQ+ care. Today, VA chaplains already fill the gap in so many of these growing areas of VA care, including caregiver support, grief care, and family care. All the while, they promote the spiritual health of every veteran by providing critical spiritual care and emotional support to our employees. With spiritual well-being being both critical to our employee wellness and one of the top 3 components of the overall well-being of the veterans we serve.
Since the inception of the Department of Veteran Affairs, chaplains have stood on the front line to provide a place of comfort and healing to our nation's veterans. Chaplains have not only cared for our veterans and their caregivers, but in keeping with Lincoln's promise, they're survivors as well.
Rain, 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 everything is just as it should. Rain, 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 everything is just as it should be. Rain, 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 everything is just as it should. Rain, 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 everything is just as it should be.
A whole person is looking at the entire totality of a person. So when I think of a three-legged stool, I think of 3 main aspects of wellness. The physical, which includes medical, psychological, which includes emotional, and then the third, spiritual, which is spirit and soul. So those 3 encompass the total health, although there's also financially and housing, the basic needs that good old Maslow has given to us. So the whole person is really tending to each aspect that a person presents.
We all chaplains. Our designation is a chaplain in the VA. So once we serve veterans, we don't go to introduce ourselves, our particular denomination. We are chaplain serving all veterans and the veteran systems. And then if it comes to a particular service, then I'm a Muslim chaplain. Serving God, you have to serve the humanity.
I became a chaplain to help people along a journey of spiritual discovery, of spiritual support, of healing from trauma, and engaging religion and spirituality in a different way and that may be available through local houses of worship or faith communities. I think that everyone has a spirituality, and we have an opportunity to help people in a lot of ways that can sometimes be unexpected. It's our privilege as chaplains to support veterans at the end of their lives, at the healing portion of their lives in which we engage them to address trauma, to address grief. We have some great outpatient programs that support grieving, that support moral injury, for combat veterans, that support moral injury and spiritual recovery. We have great programs for women veterans to have spiritual support for each other. We still have a long-standing Vietnam veterans PTSD and spirituality group that is fantastic, that still welcomes new members. We have OAF, OEF, OND veterans who come in through that group as well. And so we seek to foster a way for veterans to support each other through life's spiritual journey.
I became, outside of my job, I became friends with a veteran, and I am aware of his need to join the VA. He had no idea that there were benefits and medications and services that he can get for serving his country, and he kept putting it off, and I was able to get him connected with the right resources. Although it's not my role, I was able to help him with that. More than not, I've spent a lot of my time sitting with staff members and listening to them talk about, recently, I listened to one staff member whose mom has dementia. She has been going into the neighborhood and meeting neighbors at 2 a.m. And so I'm able to sit with that staff member and just hear her talk about her frustrations in dealing with that situation. My why is because I love people. I grew up as a pastor's kid. I never thought I would go into full-time ministry, but I always knew that I loved people.
I tell them that we are mind, body, and spirit. And so what we do with our spirituality, what we do with our emotions, what we do with our thoughts, they all interact together. It's all linked, what we do with our physical body. And so I really want them to understand that even though some may say they're not spiritual or not religious, that they have meaning in their life. They have hope in their life. They have connections in their life, and that those things are part of our spirituality. One of the best things that happened recently is that one of my veterans that struggles with anger has been in PRRC for a couple of years now. And he's been dealing with a lot of physical challenges, but an emotional challenge that he's been struggling with is that he had squatters in his house in another state. And it's taken him months of having to get a lawyer, having to go to court to get them out. And when he returned from that court date, he shared with the group, with the spirituality group, I was able to deal with these people and go to court and not lose my cool. And he was so proud, and we were so proud, and we clapped for him, and everybody was sending heart emojis and celebration in the chat. And it was just a beautiful thing to watch him from 2 years ago. If this had happened 2 years ago, he would have lost his cool. He would have. But after being in this program and coming to spirituality and really working through some issues for himself, he was able to deal with a very frustrating situation and not lose his cool. So we were very proud of that for him.
One of the things that's unique about the VA is one of the few institutions that talks about spiritual health as part of the health of a person. It's physical, mental, and spiritual. It's part of our prime directive, so to speak. And so it involves teamwork. And so chaplains work with other professionals.
Recently there was a veteran who just loved music and loved playing music, but because of his addiction, had gotten away from it. And he knew how to play the piano, so I encouraged him to play the piano and would allow him to use the the piano in the chapel to practice, and I would often visit with him as he's practicing, and we talk about the music and what music meant to him, and how just having that opportunity again to play a piano. He had been homeless for quite some time, again because of his addiction, but by playing the piano, he really just he came back to life. It was like he came to find his purpose again, and talked about just how much he wanted to play in a place of worship, and also to play for people, and also to write music and learn more about music. So I think that was really an interesting experience for me.
I serve in the Caregiver support program. I have so many hats, and so when I go and see a veteran, I'm bringing all those hats with me. And so I was providing care to a veteran with a serious illness, and his daughter had become a recent caregiver of her dad, and she was a bit overwhelmed, not much support. And she asked me, what can I do? I'm overwhelmed. And I said, we have a caregiver support program. And she said, what is that? I never heard of it. And I began to tell her how we have a program specifically for caregivers, how to support them as they care for our veterans. And within that program, they can receive education, support. There can even be respite for the veteran, and even for those who qualify, there's even a stipend. So I was able to get her referred to that program, and she was able to get the support that she needed for herself and for the veteran.
During the pandemic, chaplains entered hospital rooms, stood by the bed of our veterans who had COVID, and held tablets or phones so that they could connect with their families, and in some cases, for their families to say their final goodbyes. Chaplains have journeyed with veterans, assisting them to connect deeply with their spirituality, enabling them to ground themselves in something greater than themselves, to find meaning and purpose, to restore and reimagine, and as studies prove, to enhance the efficacy of mental and physical health care interventions. Chaplains have also been essential to the well-being of employees who have sought them out in times of crisis. And chaplains have faithfully answered their call every time. Chaplains provide critical incident stress debriefings, employee and veteran listening sessions during the nation's most painful moments in history, memorial service for deceased veterans, and conduct staff rounding offering them lights of hope. As the National VA Chaplain Service Executive Director, I am incredibly proud of VA chaplains. They consistently bear witness of the divine in all of us by attending to all. They champion the fight against anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, and anti-religious bias. They lead in the care of those suffering from moral injuries and moral distress. I am grateful that fellow veterans and I have chaplains as the wind beneath our wings to help us navigate our flight paths and bring us to a safe landing. Blessings.
I am proud of how far our VA chaplains have come and will go. So thank you for your service. I am honored to call the highest qualified spiritual health providers in this country my colleagues and partners in serving veterans throughout VA.
So to the nearly 1,000 VA chaplains who serve all vets, you are a true inspiration to me, but much more importantly, a true inspiration to so many others. Thank you, and may God bless us all.